They treated him like furniture, snapped their fingers, tossed him keys without making eye contact, expected perfection, and gave nothing in return. The valet at the Ocean Club, a beachside restaurant where meals cost more than his weekly paycheck, parking Ferraris and Bentleys for people who measured their worth in zero. 52 years old, weathered face, quiet demeanor, always respectful. Just another working-class guy in a red vest doing a simple job. But when a tech CEO spent 20 minutes explaining how real pressure works, how real decisions are made, the valet said nothing, just nodded politely and took the keys. Then the CEO noticed the tattoo on his forearm as he drove away, a Navy SEAL Trident. And suddenly, everything he'd assumed about the invisible man parking his car shattered completely, because the valet he'd dismissed as nobody had made life-and-death decisions in places most people couldn't find on a map. And the pressure that CEO bragged about? It was nothing compared to what the valet carried every single day. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we dive into this story of hidden valor, shattered assumptions, and the weight of choices that never fade, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from today. And if you believe that true warriors often hide in plain sight, hit that subscribe button. These are the stories that remind us we never really know who we're talking to. The Ocean Club sat on a pristine stretch of Malibu coastline, waves crashing against rocks 50 feet from the terrace where California's elite dined on $20 appetizers and $300 bottles of wine. The building was modern glass and steel, designed to maximize ocean views, with a private beach club attached and a member list that read like a Forbes 400 directory. Michael Torres had worked valet at the Ocean Club for 14 months. He wore the standard uniform, red vest over white shirt, black pants, comfortable shoes for running between the parking structure and the entrance. His job was simple: take keys from arriving guests, park their expensive vehicles carefully, retrieve them promptly when requested, accept whatever tip was offered or not offered, and remain invisible. He was exceptionally good at being invisible. Most guests never looked at him directly. They'd pull up in their Maseratis and Teslas, already on their phones or talking to their companions, and simply hand off the keys while walking away mid-conversation. Michael would slide behind the wheel, always adjusting the seat carefully, respecting the vehicle, and drive to the underground parking structure 3 blocks away. Then he'd jog back, ready for the next arrival. The pay was modest, but steady. Tips varied wildly. Some guests were generous, others gave nothing. Michael didn't care much either way. He wasn't doing this for the money. He was doing it because it was simple work that required no decisions beyond, where do I park this car? After 22 years of making decisions that determined whether people lived or died, simple felt like a gift. Michael had served in the U.S. Navy for those 22 years. Not on ships, not in typical naval operations. He'd been a Navy SEAL with SEAL Team 3, conducting special operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia. He'd led teams on over 300 operations, hostage rescues, high-value target captures, direct action raids. He'd been exceptional at it. Cool under pressure, sound tactical judgment, natural leader, until Ramadi, Iraq, 3 years ago. A hostage rescue. American contractor taken by insurgents. Michael's team breached the compound at 0300 hours, secured the hostage, started extraction. Then a secondary insurgent force closed in. Michael made the tactical decision to hold position and wait for air support rather than risk moving through hostile fire. The firefight lasted 8 minutes. The hostage survived. The extraction succeeded. But 2 of Michael's teammates, Petty Officer James Rivera and Senior Chief Daniel Kim, didn't make it out. Both killed in the final 2 minutes, both under his command when they died. The Navy cleared Michael of wrongdoing. The mission was officially a success. But Michael knew that if he'd made a different call, Rivera and Kim might still be alive. Or maybe more people would have died. There was no way to know. That uncertainty, the fundamental inability to test alternate scenarios, haunted him. He'd retired 6 months later, unable to bear the weight of command decisions where every choice carried costs he couldn't fully calculate until after people were already dead. So he'd walked away. Honorable discharge, full benefits. He'd tried security consulting, teaching tactical courses, bodyguard work, but they all required being responsible for someone's safety again. Then he'd seen the Ocean Club hiring valets, park cars, no life or death stakes, no command decision. Perfect. On this particular Friday evening, the Ocean Club was busy with the usual weekend crowd. At 7:45 5 p.m., a Ferrari 488 Spider pulled up, metallic blue, probably worth $300,000. The driver was in his early 40s, expensive casual clothes, on his phone. "Listen, Jason, the valuation is solid at $2.3 billion, the man said, tossing keys to Michael without looking. "Series C funding closes next week." He walked toward the entrance, still talking, not acknowledging Michael's existence. Michael parked the Ferrari carefully and returned to the valet stand. An hour later, Marcus emerged from the restaurant with 3 others, all laughing. Michael retrieved the Ferrari. As he handed Marcus the keys, Marcus was still talking. "Look, most people never experience real pressure. They have comfortable jobs with minimal stakes. Like him," Marcus gestured at Michael. "Parking cars is probably the most stress-free job imaginable. No decisions, no responsibility." Michael said nothing. Marcus tipped him $10 without making eye contact. "Thanks, man." 3 hours later, Michael's shift ended. He changed out of his vest in the employee break room, pulled on a worn leather jacket, and headed to his truck. A 15-year-old Toyota Tacoma parked in the employee lot. He was unlocking it when his phone buzzed. Text from Danny Rodriguez, brother of James Rivera, the SEAL who died in Ramadi. They'd stayed in touch, though every conversation carried weight that neither of them fully acknowledged. "Hey, Mike, just wanted you to know, James's daughter graduated high school today. Top of her class. Full scholarship to UCLA. He would have been so proud." Michael stared at the message for a long time. Rivera's daughter had been 12 when her father died. Now she was 18, heading to college, growing up without the man who should have been there to see it. Michael typed back, "That's wonderful news. She's going to do great things. James would definitely be proud." He sat in his truck for 10 minutes before starting the engine, Rivera's face clear in his memory. 28 years old, optimistic, talented operator. Dead because Michael had made a call to hold position instead of moving. The what-ifs never stopped. They were always there, running parallel to whatever else he was thinking about. What if he'd called for immediate extraction? What if he'd split the team? What if he'd assessed the intelligence differently? The answers didn't exist. There was no way to rewind and test different scenarios. There was only the reality where Rivera and Kim were dead and Michael was alive, parking cars at a beachside restaurant, trying to find meaning in a life that felt increasingly hollow. He drove home to his small apartment in Inglewood, 25 minutes from the Ocean Club. The place was sparse, minimal furniture, few personal items, nothing on the walls except a single framed photo of his SEAL team from 2016, back when everyone in the picture was still alive. Michael ate a simple dinner, watched an episode of a show he wasn't really paying attention to, and went to bed around midnight. His sleep was interrupted by the usual dreams, fragmented memories of operations, faces of people he'd lost, the sound of gunfire that always seemed louder in dreams than it had been in reality. The next morning, Saturday, Michael returned to work at the Ocean Club for the lunch shift. The restaurant was moderately busy, mostly families and couples rather than the high-powered business crowd that dominated evenings. Around 2 p.m., a black Range Rover pulled up to the valet stand. Michael approached, noting that the driver was Marcus Chen again, this time with a woman who appeared to be his wife or girlfriend. They were dressed for a casual beach lunch, both in designer casual wear. "Oh, it's the valet from last night," Marcus said, as if suddenly remembering Michael existed. "Good to see you again, man." Michael took the keys. "Good afternoon, sir." "Babe, this is the place I told you about," Marcus continued to the woman. "Amazing seafood, perfect ocean views. We should come here more often." Michael parked the Range Rover and returned to the valet stand. An hour passed. Then Marcus and his companion emerged from the restaurant, walking slowly, clearly enjoying the afternoon. Michael retrieved the Range Rover and brought it to the entrance. Marcus and the woman climbed in, still talking. "The craziest part," Marcus was saying, "is that everyone thinks their job is hard, but they have no perspective. Like this guy," he gestured at Michael, "probably thinks parking cars is challenging. Meanwhile, I'm dealing with hostile board members and investor pressure and competitive threats that could destroy everything I've built." Michael handed Marcus the key. As he did so, he shifted his weight and his jacket sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the edge of a tattoo on his forearm. It was a Navy SEAL Trident, the distinctive insignia of an eagle clutching a trident, pistol, and anchor. About 2 inches tall, faded from years, but still clearly recognizable. Below it, in smaller text that was partially visible, Team 3. Marcus was reaching for his wallet when he froze, staring at Michael's forearm. His expression shifted rapidly. Confusion, recognition, shock. "Is that—" Marcus started, then stopped. "That's a SEAL Trident." Michael pulled his sleeve down, his expression unchanged. "Have a good day, sir." But Marcus didn't move. His hand remained frozen halfway to his wallet. "You were a SEAL, Navy SEAL." Michael met his eyes for the first time with something other than practiced service industry politeness. "I was. Long time ago. How long? 22 years. Marcus's face was cycling through emotions. Embarrassment, disbelief, recalculation. His girlfriend looked confused, sensing something had shifted but not understanding what. What's wrong? She asked Marcus. Marcus ignored her, still staring at Michael. Team 3. You were with SEAL Team 3. Yes, sir. Those are the guys who... Marcus trailed off. His Silicon Valley confidence completely evaporated. SEAL Team 3 had been involved in some of the most publicized SEAL operations of the last 2 decades. Ramadi, Fallujah, operations that had shaped the Iraq War. Michael said nothing, just waited for Marcus to process whatever he was processing. I'm sorry, Marcus finally said, his voice completely different now, quieter, uncertain. What I said last night, and just now, about pressure and stress, I didn't know. No reason you should know, Michael said simply. It's not something I advertise. But you're working as a valet. It came out as a question, though Marcus clearly didn't know how to ask what he was really asking. I am. Why? Michael considered his answer. He could deflect, could give a surface explanation, but something about the genuine shock in Marcus's face, the complete dissolution of his earlier arrogance, made him decide to be honest. Because I spent 22 years making decisions where people died if I was wrong, and eventually I was wrong, and people died, and I decided I didn't want that responsibility anymore. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus's girlfriend had gone quiet, finally understanding that something significant was happening. I'm so sorry, Marcus said again. I feel like an idiot. You weren't being an idiot, Michael said, his tone not unkind. You were talking about your life. Your work is important to you. That's fine. But compared to what you... It's not a comparison, Michael interrupted gently. Your work matters to you and to the people who depend on you. That's valid. You don't need to apologize for caring about it. Marcus shook his head slowly. Can I ask, how many missions? Over 300. The number visibly staggered Marcus. 300 missions. What does that even mean? What does that look like? Michael was quiet for a moment. Around them, other valets were handling other cars, the normal flow of the Ocean Club continuing while this conversation existed in its own bubble. It means I spent 12 years of my life in places where people were actively trying to kill me and my team. It means I kicked down doors in the middle of the night not knowing what was on the other side, and it means I made split-second decisions about whether someone was a threat or a civilian. And if I got it wrong, either my team died or innocent people died. Michael's voice remained calm, factual, but there was weight behind every word. It means I learned to function on 3 hours of sleep for weeks at a time. It means I saw friends get shot, get blown up, get killed in ways that I'll never forget. It means I wrote letters to families explaining that their husband or father wasn't coming home, knowing that nothing I wrote could possibly matter. Marcus was completely still, listening with an intensity that suggested he was finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd been dismissing. It means I carried a rifle for so many years that it felt strange when I finally didn't have one. It means I knew how to kill someone in 17 different ways before I turned 30. It means I have dreams where I'm back in those places, making those decisions, watching those outcomes that I can't change no matter how many times I relive them. Michael paused, then continued more quietly. And it means I got really good at making those decisions under pressure. So good that I forgot they were supposed to be hard. So good that I stopped feeling the weight of them until I made a call that got 2 of my teammates killed. And that's when I realized I needed to stop making those kinds of decisions because I'd lost the ability to feel their cost until it was too late. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find words that felt adequate. His girlfriend spoke first, her voice soft. Thank you for your service. Michael nodded acknowledgement. Appreciate that. Marcus was still struggling. I just spent last night telling you that my job was high pressure, that I make important decisions. Jesus Christ, I'm such an asshole. You weren't wrong, Michael said. Your decisions are important. 800 employees depending on you? That's real responsibility. I'm not minimizing that, but it's not the same. No, Michael agreed. It's not the same, but that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Different kinds of pressure, different stakes, both real. Marcus finally pulled out his wallet, but he paused before taking out any money. This is going to sound stupid, but I want to give you a bigger tip, and I realize that's insulting given what you just told me, but I don't know what else to do. Michael smiled slightly, the first real smile Marcus had seen from him. The tip is fine. You don't owe me anything. Can I ask why you're doing this? Valet work? You could consult, teach, do security work? People would pay serious money for someone with your experience, because those jobs require making decisions about other people's safety. I'm done with that. So, you park cars, I park cars, Michael confirmed. It's simple simple work. No one's life depends on whether I do it perfectly. If I make a mistake, the worst outcome is a scratched bumper. That's manageable. Marcus absorbed this. That makes sense, but doesn't it feel like a waste? All that training, all that experience. It's not wasted, Michael interrupted. It taught me what matters. And what matters is being able to sleep at night. I couldn't do that when I was leading missions. I can do it now, most nights anyway. That's worth more than any consulting fee. The woman touched Marcus's arm gently. We should let him get back to work. Marcus nodded, but didn't move immediately. Can I ask one more thing? The people you lost, the ones you mentioned, do you stay in touch with their families? Some of them. It's complicated, I'm sure. Marcus extended his hand. I'm Marcus Chen, and I'm genuinely sorry for being such a dismissive prick. Michael shook his hand. Michael Torres. And you weren't a prick. You just didn't know. Most people don't. Marcus pulled out his wallet again, this time extracting several $100 bills. Please take this. Not as a tip, but as, I don't know, an acknowledgement that I was completely out of line. Michael hesitated, then accepted the money. Thank you. That's generous. It's inadequate, Marcus said. But it's what I can do. He paused. Would you be willing to talk sometime? Not as valet and customer, but just as, I don't know. I'd like to understand more about your experience. Michael considered this. Why? Because I've spent my whole adult life thinking I understood pressure and hard decisions, and I clearly don't. I'd like to learn. Something in Marcus's tone, genuine humility, real desire to understand rather than just assuage guilt, made Michael nod slowly. Sure, I'm here most days. Come by sometime when you're not in a hurry. Marcus smiled. I'll do that. And Michael, thank you. For your service, yes, but also for being gracious when I was being an idiot. You weren't an idiot, Michael said again. You're just human. We all are. Marcus and his girlfriend drove away. Michael stood by the valet podium, the hundreds of dollars in his pocket feeling heavier than they should. He'd broken his own rule about invisibility, about keeping his past separate from his present. But something about Marcus's genuine shock and subsequent humility had made it feel okay. A week later, Marcus returned to the Ocean Club alone, mid-afternoon, when the restaurant was quiet. He approached Michael directly. You have time to talk? Michael glanced at his supervisor, who nodded. They walked to a quiet section of the beachside terrace, away from other people. I've been thinking about what you said, Marcus began, about making decisions where people die if you're wrong. And I realized I have no frame of reference for that. The worst that happens in my world is we lose money or the company fails. Nobody dies. That's a good thing, Michael said. You should be grateful for that. I am, but it made me think about perspective. I've been treating my work like it's the most important thing in the world, and it matters to me and to my employees, but it's not life or death. Michael was quiet, letting Marcus work through whatever he was working through. Can I ask what happened? The mission where you lost people? Michael had expected this question. He'd been deciding all week whether he'd answer if Marcus asked. Now, sitting here with the ocean breeze and the sound of waves, he found himself willing to share. Hostage rescue. Iraq. 3 years ago, we went in to extract an American contractor who'd been taken by insurgents. Got him out, but we took fire during extraction. 2 of my guys didn't make it. I'm sorry. The mission was classified as a success. Hostage recovered. Acceptable casualties. But those 2 men had families, had futures, and they died because I made a tactical call to hold position instead of moving. If I'd made a different call, maybe they'd be alive. Or maybe more people would have died. Maybe. I'll never know. That's what makes it hard. There's no way to test alternate scenarios. You make the call, you live with the outcome, and you never know if a different choice would have been better or worse. Marcus was quiet for a long time. How do you live with that uncertainty? Poorly, Michael admitted. That's why I'm parking cars instead of leading team. Do you regret your service? Michael considered the question carefully. No, I regret specific decisions. I regret that people died, but I don't regret the service itself. It needed to be done, and I was capable of doing it. For a long time, I did it well. And now I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not making those kinds of decisions. Turns out that's harder than I expected. They talked for another hour. Marcus asked questions carefully, respectfully, and Michael found himself answering more openly than he had with anyone except his therapist. There was something about Marcus's genuine interest, his willingness to admit how little he understood, that made it easy to talk. When they finally stood to leave, Marcus extended his hand again. Thank you for this, for trusting me with your story. Thank you for asking the right questions. Can I do something for you? Marcus asked. I know people. If you ever want different work or help with anything, I have resources. Michael smiled slightly. I appreciate that, but I'm okay where I am. This job works for me right Speak now. The offer stands. Anytime. Over the following months, Marcus became a regular at the Ocean Club, stopping by to talk with Michael during quiet periods. Their conversations ranged from serious to casual, always with mutual respect. One evening, Marcus arrived with Colonel James Patterson, retired Marines. "Michael, this is Colonel Patterson. I told him about you." Patterson extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, son. I run a veterans organization that helps former special operations folks transition to civilian life, job placement, therapy connections, community building. I'd like to talk with you about getting involved." Michael felt something stir, interest, maybe hope. "I'd be open to that conversation, sir." "Good man." Patterson handed him a card. "Call me anytime." That night, Michael thought about Rivera and Kim, about the weight he'd been carrying since Ramadi. The weight hadn't gone away. It never would. But maybe there were ways to carry it that didn't require him to disappear completely. He called Colonel Patterson and left a message. "Sir, this is Michael Torres. I'd like to talk about your veterans organization. I think I might be ready to get involved." For the first time in 3 years, Michael felt like he might be moving towards something instead of just away from the past. He was still parking cars at the Ocean Club. That hadn't changed. But maybe there was room in his life for both the simplicity he needed and the purpose he missed. Have you ever misjudged someone based on their job? Ever assumed that simple work meant a simple person? The world is full of people carrying stories we never see, bearing weight we can't imagine, serving in ways we'll never fully understand. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. At Secrets Never Told, we believe that true warriors don't always announce themselves. They're parking your car, serving your coffee, walking past you on the street. And their courage isn't diminished by invisibility, it's proved by it.